We got everybody we need to have. So good evening and welcome to the Lincoln County Courthouse. This meeting of the Lincoln County Planning Commission will begin with a few introductory remarks. This meeting is being streamed live, and when adjourned and posted, it will be available at any time at lincolncountysd.org. The order of events tonight will be as follows. For each public hearing, staff will introduce the agenda item and present a summary of the staff report. The applicant will then be asked to explain their proposal in further detail and to answer any questions from the County Planning Commission. I will then open the floor to public comment, first for persons in support of the application and then for persons in opposition to the application. When you step up to the podium, please state your name and address and speak into the microphone. Please limit your comments to less than 5 minutes. Lastly, decisions on rezone applications will be scheduled for an additional public hearing during an upcoming Board of Commissioners meeting. Decisions on the conditional use permit applications may be appealed to the County Board of Commissioners by submitting a letter to the County Planning and Zoning Office within 5 business days. Thank you for your cooperation. We'll first do roll call. Commissioner Green?
Here.
Commissioner Boots?
Here.
Commissioner Sweeter?
Here.
Commissioner Instead?
Here.
Commissioner Scott is also here. We'll now move to approve the meeting minutes. Are there any corrections? If not, can I get a motion to approve in a second?
Motion Boots. Second Instead.
It's been moved, properly seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And then, now we'll go to the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
All right, can we get a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
So move Green.
Second, Sweeter.
It's been moved, properly seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. At this point, we will now take public input on non-agenda items. Judging by the attendance, unless Mr. Nielsen has something to say, I think we'll close the floor to public input. So we'll move on to application number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Toby Brown, representing County Planning. This first item before you this evening is a public hearing for an application for a conditional use permit. This application is actually an amending conditional use permit to a conditional use permit that was originally issued in 2020. The change is that the applicant's requesting additional 2,139 square feet of warehouse building space, so he's putting addition onto that building. Subject property is a little over 300 feet to the south of, or should be the south of T-City limits. Subject property is Zone C commercial, as is all surrounding adjacent property. This property is within the Kearse Lake Industrial Park, so this is a pretty fully developed commercial light industrial type park. Subject property is improved right now in 2020 when it was issued for conditional use permit for warehousing. There was constructed 25,000 square feet of warehouse space, and the applicant's going to add on to that for an additional, there'd be additional 2,139 square feet, sorry. So as you can see, the property is to be the one looking to the east of the property there. Property is fenced. We haven't had any really issues with this particular property as far as nuisance complaints or as far as other types of issues with it. So the applicant did submit a concept plan with the application. The concept plan shows that he's going to add an addition to the buildings and for additional storage space between the two buildings that are constructed onto the property. So the applicant did send notice to adjacent properties. Staff did post a property. As of this public hearing, we haven't had any questions or issues or comments regarding this public hearing tonight. As noted in the staff analysis, this is within a fully developed industrial park, and with this additional square footage, staff doesn't feel that this will be a detriment to that particular area. What we're asking, though, is with the approval of this tonight, is that we'll essentially void the existing conditional use permit that was issued in 2020. We'll replace that with this one, and so there'll be the 7 conditions that apply there. And so if there's a question about In 2020, there was conditions that were placed on the permit. There was 5 conditions. Each of those conditions was really related to the construction at that time. It also locked in the square footage at that 25,356 square feet. So that's essentially why we're doing this amendment here this evening. But with the new conditions, those are the typical conditions that you've been recommending and approving with warehousing within the last, what I'll say, last couple years with those types of applications. So we do feel that these conditions are appropriate for this application and also voiding that existing conditional use permit. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn back to you. If there's any questions, staff can certainly answer them now if you'd like.
Mr. Chair,
Green?
question. Toby, there have been no complaints regarding this property at all since 2020 when this was initially approved, or?
No, nope.
And the second one, when we talk about the 25,000 plus square feet that's currently there, that's the 3 existing buildings combined together, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And I jumbled that a little bit, but there's an existing 25,356, and he's amending it with that additional square footage, so.
And then does that cap at that?
It'll cap at what this, as noted on here, is what that site plan will be, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We'll ask the applicant to come forward. Please state your name and address for the record and tell us a little bit about what you want to do.
Jamie Nielsen, 1109 South Tabor Avenue, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, 57106. Yeah, we just got a gap between a couple buildings. Currently really no use there with snow removals being pushed the other way. So just want to expand that, put a couple more storage units on there. They're not heated. These are cold storage only. Going to be putting potentially walk-through doors in there, right? Electric door openers for just a different clientele base. So we got demand for those typically in that space and figured why just have it be a gravel road when we can put a building there. So that's the objective.
Very good. Any thoughts on doing it on the other 2 buildings?
If I
Or in
had,
between there?
no, because that's where my snow goes. And that's
Oh,
where, that's
you gotta
where, and that's
yeah.
where the water drains.
Sure,
Yeah.
makes
yep,
sense.
Yep. So we'd want to just keep that open. Yep.
Yep,
Yep. We've got a gate on that side to push snow through and yep, that works pretty good that way.
sure.
Yep.
Very good. Any questions for the applicant? None? All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Nielsen. At this point, we'll ask anybody else in favor of the application to come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the floor to people in support of the application. We'll open it to anybody that's in opposition. And again, judging by the attendance, and I don't think Mr. Nielsen is going to come and speak in opposition of his own application, so we'll close the floor to that. And we will entertain a motion of approval and then have discussion.
So moved, Boots.
Second instead.
Okay, it's been moved, properly seconded. Do we have any discussion?
No, makes sense to me. I feel like there's not a whole lot of, doesn't really change anything there. so.
No?
No,
Makes
just taking care of a little bit of space that he's not using and can put them 2 buildings together, so I don't see a problem with it.
Appreciate them having done the analysis of the snow and water runoff already goes the other way,
Absolutely.
so that's, yeah.
And I can just say from personal experience, I needed a larger storage unit, and to try and find one that's bigger than 10 by 20 is pretty hard now, and to be able for him to get bigger ones is nice, because
Yeah,
I must have spent hours on the phone trying to find one, and so it's better than getting a ticket for having your boat sitting in the streets.
yeah, absolutely.
Name on my waiting list.
No, and I'll just say in closing, I guess unless Commissioner Sweeter, do you have anything?
Sounds like a good deal to me.
Yeah, and so in closing, you can just tell by the pictures that we were presented, it's a very nicely run operation. It's very clean. We appreciate that. It sure doesn't look like you're having a bunch of problems up there, and by the fact that there's nobody here to oppose it, it's apparent that you're running a good operation. And I also, to mimic what Commissioner Green said, I like the fact that you have thought about that you do need a place for snow and water to go, and so that, we really appreciate that. It makes our job a lot easier. So with that, I'll close the floor to comment, and we'll call the roll. Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeter,
Yes.
Commissioner Boots.
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott is also a yes, so. Thank you, Mr. Nielsen. Good luck. And with that, I think that's it, Toby. We're moving on to,
Old business.
No older new business, Mr. Chair.
I don't believe so.
So I got one item there. New business.
So we're gonna do the
Yeah,
work
real quick.
session.
Yep.
Okay.
So I just wanted to update you that on August 27th, staff did present to the Board of Commissioners what we presented to you at your August meeting. This is a little bit more cleaned up version of it with the PowerPoint. But essentially went through with the Board of Commissioners the updates that we talked to you about with the comprehensive plan, primarily the goals and policies. And then the vision of, and this would be the cover of the document, would be the three different areas that we've looked at in the county, and then the theme of connecting Lincoln County. Instead of growing and shaping, it's really just connecting Lincoln County at all levels. Then I won't go through all these slides, but what I want to just update you on is that didn't really hear any feedback from the Board of Commissioners about it. They had a lot of questions about it, but generally seemed to be supportive of the idea that we're going to with the future land use map, which would be having a planned growth area, which would follow the MPO urbanized area. So kind of a timeline on this is, we did send feedback to the consultant as far as some edits that we had on the draft document. We're hoping to get that back shortly. But timeline is that October, looking to do a blitz with the municipalities, going to their city council meetings, and if any would like to volunteer to come with the staff to do that, we'd appreciate it. But essentially, just doing this PowerPoint presentation, municipalities identifying if they have any feedback or concerns or issues with it, or any, other items that they'd like to see with it. But then hope to possibly get it before you guys in November to start the adoption process with it. So we're that close to getting where we need to go with it. So I appreciate all the work that you guys put into it and all the feedback that you've given us over the time. If there's any other additional feedback, certainly we can take it tonight. But again, I'll just reach out to me if you want to participate with us next month with the municipalities. Okay? With that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you. And if there's any questions, I'll certainly answer them.
Anybody have any questions?
Do you have those dates for those municipalities already that you could send us to see if we can?
Yeah, I can send those out to you. So they all meet on the same first Monday of the month. Pretty much all of them do, so, yeah. But, so we'll probably just go from one to the other pretty quickly. The smaller ones to the south, we'll probably push those into November too, though, because we'll have time to do that, so, but,
Thanks. Yeah, if you
Okay.
could send those out, I'd appreciate it.
yeah, yep, we can do that, so.
Mr. Brown?
Yep.
And one of the, I guess, an idea or a thought I've brought up a few times in the past, and as we're doing this, is it possible, or is it, I don't know what we have to do to have some discussion about it, but since we're having discussion about maybe changing the way we look at the northern part of the county towards residential development or any kind of development, is there any way we can have some discussion on maybe looking at livestock production in the southern part of the county different while we're going through this process?
Yeah, I think that this will be the guide for this is the policy. And then the next step of this is step 2, which is the law part of it, the ordinance part of it. So I think this is, when you look at the goals and policies in the future land use map, it's kind of aligning to that we're going to have to take a look at some of those policy or some of those laws when we look at how we're looking at them.
Because
That makes
basically what
sense.
you're saying is that this map is, the green, we're setting aside for agriculture.
Yes, yep.
And so with that, what you're saying is maybe then after this is adopted, we can take a look at the law side of that.
Yeah, and I think I should say there was.
And I don't have any marvelous ideas, but I think it's worth the discussion, right?
Well, I think you're gonna have to open all of it up, and I should point out that, I'm glad you brought that up, is that when I presented to the Board of Commissioners on August 27th, there was public comment. And one of the public comments was that when we presented this at the August meeting, there was some dialogue about building eligibilities. And if the intent of this was to get rid of building eligibilities, and I'll say no, the intent of this is not to get rid of building eligibilities. And I don't think we're gonna get rid of building eligibilities, but that's all part of that future laws, part of it in the future. But this plan doesn't guide us to get rid of building eligibilities. In fact, it strengthens building eligibilities, in my opinion. So, just want to be clear, and then beyond that is that, when it comes to the law changes, that's really up to the Board of Commissioners. It's up to us as staff and Planning Commission to give them recommendations, but ultimately those laws will be voted on by them at some stage.
So how does that process work? So we get this adopted, and whether it's us or a resident or whoever has ideas on some of those laws that we want to have discussion about, I guess, I mean, is there a, yeah, I mean, how does that work?
So, we don't really
I'll
have,
just throw something out there.
yeah.
If we want to revisit the setbacks on different classes of livestock operations, how would a person start that process?
Well, I mean, nothing's been set in stone yet, but I would really recommend that we create a task force.
Okay.
A group that we.
And is that something that this commission could do?
Yeah, I mean, we'll recommend that to the Board of Commissioners, and then they'll set up the task force like they have in the other cases, like the pipeline task force and things like that.
But in order for you to recommend it to the Board of Commissioners, how would that process start?
Here, we'll recommend it up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, yeah.
The idea would come from your office,
From this board, we'll
or we
be the
could
ones-
request you to
Yep.
ask them. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I was asking.
Yep, yeah. Because ultimately, the comp plan and the zoning ordinance is a recommendation from your body, not from staff, but from your body. And so it's important that, that it's gonna take a lot of time to dig into those issues, that we're gonna wanna create a task force to do that, in my mind.
Yeah, I would
So,
agree.
yeah.
I just wonder where that idea initially starts and comes from.
Yep, so step one, adopt this. Step two is we'll come to you guys in hopefully January or February and say, here's what we're thinking we should do, and then you recommend it up.
And that's what you think by January, February, we could maybe have this in place?
Yep,
Yep,
yes,
That's the goal.
that's the goal.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's
And that'll
important, I
have to
mean,
take what kind of vote from the county commission to adopt it?
resolution.
Okay.
This document, resolution, yep. And I think we see, whether it be the joint area, whether it be other areas that we're starting to see, it'd be good to have this policy in place right now. Because the issues we're dealing with right now, it'd be good
Yeah,
to
for sure.
have these policies in place, so.
Yep, very good. Well, thanks for all you've done.
Nope, thank you guys.
Good work.
You guys are
Any
the ones
questions
that
for
are.
Toby?
Yep.
Is your municipality tour, is that like, are we trying to reach out to say, hey, we would like to establish these joint commission areas? Or how is that conversation continue to go with the municipalities as we try to move forward with that endeavor?
So, so this new concept with the planned growth area that staff has visited with staff from T and Harrisburg. The joint area, of course, is governed by the joint, but ordinance, but staff from both T and Harrisburg seem supportive of this idea. They agree that it creates this kind of relationship that we currently don't have right now. But I think that we need to take it a step further and meet with their elected officials and just kind of make sure they're briefed on it and with their understanding of it, so.
And right now, the initial concern is T and Harrisburg, since Lennox, Canton are outside of that planned growth area, not really pushing for that at this point.
Correct.
We're really, the focus at this point is the T and Harrisburg area.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Sioux Falls, I suppose.
And Sioux Falls, which we already have the agreement with.
Right, yeah, good point.
And again, and I apologize because I know you weren't here at that last meeting, but this is based on the urbanized growth area. So there's really a nexus to why we've chosen that area for planned growth within the county.
That
So,
makes sense.
but as I mentioned to the Board of Commissioners too, and I'll say real briefly, is that the challenge staff has right now is when the public comes in and says, well, we'd like to do this type of development, ABC, whatever it is, really the future land use map is supposed to be here, not there, not here, kind of a deal. But right now, we're telling people, well, if you want to do commercial industrial, go to the interstate. Well, that land's either, not for sale, or it's just not developable, or it's just too far away from the metro area. And so really what this plan does is it allows us to really take a look at where I think all of our pressure is, I mean, I think you guys would probably concur with that too, is that's where a lot of our requests would be within this area for residential, commercial, industrial type uses. So this just allows us to work with those municipalities to do good growth, good development, as opposed to haphazard growth and development. And then it just seems like, the other thing I think that what county staff is trying to get ahead of is that we got a lot of ping pong going on right now. The applicant comes to us, we say, well, you gotta talk to the city, and then the city says, well, we gotta talk to the county. And so that's really no way we should treat a customer. I mean, we should be able to answer those questions directly or work with the entities to do it instead of saying, well, you gotta go talk to them and not them. And like I also said, and I'm not gonna reiterate that whole speech that I gave to the commissioners, but Lincoln County is made up of a whole bunch of sandboxes, townships, cities, rural waters, you name it, there's a whole bunch in the county. But really what this plan aims to do is to break down all those sandboxes into one big sandbox, which is Lincoln County. And that's gonna require leadership, and that's gonna require us to step up and, not just planning and zoning, but all the departments to step up and just say, look, that we're coordinating these things on the behalf of the growth of Lincoln County, which is what needs to take place, so.
Do you feel the plan as it is creates more opportunity to engage? Because, we hear it here all the time, is to engage the townships also. Like it's, I know oftentimes, the townships come with their ideas, and sometimes it seems like we're not all communicating, but do you think this plan helps with that?
Yes. Yep, because I think the other thing I'll say too is that, staff, we really try to get everything prepared when we give it to you guys. But oftentimes you'll hear, well, it's like, well, have you talked to the township yet? Nobody's talked to the township. Have you done this, not done that? Really what this new process will do is before it even comes to you is all of those questions are primarily gonna be answered. So it's gonna really come to you as a full, complete plan as opposed to a piecemeal plan, which is a lot of times what happens now, so.
Yeah, and I think you guys, your staff has done a great job in breaking down a lot of those silos and barriers, and and not just from the planned growth areas. I think one of the bright examples is 300 feet outside of Lennox was that event center that was approved, and we took into consideration those things that we felt that in taking Lennox's guidance also, and so I just think a lot of those silos I think are being broken down. So it's just making sure that this plan sticks with that theme also.
I think, I think we do work really intentionally at it, but what more important to me is lately is that we want to make sure as the county that when the cities grow to these developments, that they annex these developments.
Right.
We're starting to get the impression that might not be happening with some of this development we're approving. And so that's going to be a potential conflict down the road, not for us to deal with, but for future staff and for future people to deal with, and for future landowners to deal with. And that's the last thing that we want. And we want good development out there. We don't want scattered piecemeal development. We want something that's going to be decent out there for what we're doing.
So do you think that could be part of the future is that if we approve it at the county level, that there will be some agreement that when the municipality gets there, that they kind of have to annex it, or they've already agreed to annex it?
I think the properties will be developed in accordance with the city standards, so that it won't be a detriment when the
So then the
cities get
city,
there.
the municipality will want to.
And the landowner will too, hopefully, yeah. I mean, that's the best we can do, because a lot of this development, I know, Mr. Chair, you've talked about a lot, is that some of this development isn't consistent with the local zoning of these developments. So that's pretty hard to go to a landowner and say, well, we want to annex you in, but you're non-conforming, so you don't fit with what our zoning is. So I think we want to break down those barriers and try to make development that's annexable and consistent with the city's vision, what the city, each of these cities and all the way down to Hudson and Fairview, they've all developed their own comprehensive plan with their vision for what they want their city to be. We need to work with them instead of against them on that process. And I
Agreed.
think that's what this plan does, in my
Yep.
opinion, so.
Yeah, and if it's developed so both sides want to annex and be annexed into town, that takes care of a lot of your problem, because a lot of these cities, if you've got a group of owners that don't want to be annexed in, you're looking at is that city gonna want to forcibly annex somebody into town, and then you've just got that mess. But if we're all finally working on the same page and gears working together, it just makes it that much easier. And then a city's gonna wanna bring in, and just like Toby said, so will the business, because they're already set up. They're not gonna be said, well, you need a street like this, you need curb and gutter, you need this, you need that. You know, you're kind of set up to be annexed into town.
Well, it'll look and feel like it too. Even though it might be a number of years out.
That's kind of what's going on down there on like 85th and Tallgrass, where, you got a group of people that were out in that subdevelopment, and now they don't want to be annexed in because they don't have curb and gutter, and, so they're not connected to the city water and sewer, and so for them, it's a huge burden to get in conformance, so, they don't want to have that
Yeah,
assessed against their property and say, hey, I don't want to have, because I don't know what it would cost to put curb and gutter, around a 1 acre lot, but I can't imagine it'd be cheap. So,
And I should say, this plan that we're presenting to you, that you will be considering adopting, this plan was the creation of the citizens, the public meetings that we had, the task force stakeholder meetings that we had, the surveys that we had. We all heard the same things over and over again, which was we want better cooperation with you and the other entities, and we also want good growth. We don't want stuff popping up out of the middle of nowhere that just doesn't belong. And so that's really what this plan is about. And that this plan is a reflection of what's going on. I mean, this isn't anything new, or it isn't anything that's changing the stream. This is us understanding and reflecting that this is what the pressures are that are out there with, the fastest, what I'm gonna say is the three fastest growing communities in the state of South Dakota are right there in northern Lincoln County. And in 2050, I said this the last thing I'll leave you with, and I could ramble on for hours, that, but the last thing I told the County Board of Commissioners is that your strategic plan is this right here. That in 2050, we're anticipating 139,776 people. That's a little over double that what we are right now. And you're gonna say, well, that's 25 years from now. So was 2005 when they created the current plan. And and everyone will say about the current plan that it's outdated and it didn't hit the population marks. Well, that's because we weren't planning for the municipalities. Sioux Falls and T and Harrisburg outgrew our plan, right? So, but this anticipates that growth. And my guess is that's probably going to be too low from what it's going to be now. But when you think about the pressures that you're going to have on everything, county services, county government, it's going to have to be, that's your strategic plan to look at that. And again, there's really two types of growth, planned growth and unplanned growth. And it's proven fact that unplanned growth is way more expensive and way more painful than if you plan it ahead. And I think that's what this plan does, is I think it reflects what it is that we envision what that planned area is going to look like. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair. Otherwise, if you have any more questions.
thank you, Mr. Brown. If there's no more questions, doesn't appear there is. So we'll we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So
I'll make-
moved.
Second, Boots.
All right, been moved, properly seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, guys.